The story begins with 3 high school students and Mukoda Tsuyoshi, who were summoned to another world as heroes. A magician appraised their abilities and he learned that the high schoolers had strong unique skills. Suddenly Mukoda was told that his unique skill is online grocery. He got an emotional damage because he was totally weak compared to the high school students. A few moments later they had an audience with the king, and he asked the heroes to defeat the Demon King. Mukoda knew that his online grocery skills wouldn't be useful in battle. For this reason, he decided to live a simple life in this world. Following this, he received 20 gold coins, and he realized that his clothes made him suspicious. As a result, he bought new clothes to avoid standing out in this world. After this, he rented a room, and Mukoda was glad that he didn't have to become a hero, like the 3 high school students. Then Mukoda opened his status and learned about his powers. He immediately tried to activate a unique skill, but it didn't work. Suddenly, he pressed the word online grocery and an online grocery website opened. He put goods in the shopping cart and learned that the goods were not free. After he figured out how to pay for the goods, his purchased goods appeared in an Amazon package. He was amazed at the usefulness of his Isekai Amazon skills and planned to use it to make money. The following morning he planned to leave the kingdom. He was very lucky and got the last seat on the carriage that went to Keels. On the way to the next town he met a merchant. Mukoda learned that his appraisal skill he possesses would reveal his true identity. That's why he planned to keep it a secret, because he doesn't want to get into any trouble. Also, Mukoda learned that the border in the kingdom of Reisager would soon be closed, and he was shocked about it. When he arrived in the next town, all travel services were currently suspended. The reason for this was that a war would most likely break out in this kingdom, and Mukoda was advised to leave this kingdom as quickly as possible. The following day he visited the Adventurers Guild and he planned to hire some escorts. The receptionist told him that it cost 7 gold coins and that many similar requests were currently being made. Then Mukoda paid 8 gold coins and he was introduced to Fenrir, who was supposed to accompany him to the kingdom of Venan. Mukoda offered to take care of the meals on the trip, and Fenrir was looking forward to it. The next morning, Mukoda was introduced to Fenrir's party members and he was pleased to meet them. They set off and Mukoda was excited to see this world. In the afternoon they took a break and Mukoda took out cooking utensils from his item box. Rita was impressed by his magic stove, and he replied that he got it from a friend. A few moments later the meal was served, and he made delicious sandwiches and soup. Fenrir's party was impressed with his cooking skills and praised his meals. They were happy to have accepted this job, and were looking forward to eating more meals from him. Later, Rita noticed some monsters and she got ready for battle. Suddenly, a group of monsters attacked them, but Fenrir and Vincent defeated them. Meanwhile, Mukoda was shocked to see monsters in this world. Then Rita reported that she had spotted a red boar. Mukoda learned that a boar is huge in this world. Afterwards, Mukoda was protected by the magicians, and the swordsman attacked the monster. A few moments later, the boar was cut up and Mukoda offered to put the meat in his item box. Then it was evening, and Mukoda wanted to prepare dinner. Fenrir's party wanted to see him cook, and he said that he was embarrassed to cook in front of others. Then he made a stew and served it to his friends. They tried Mukoda's stew and Mukoda thought they didn't like his dish. But he was wrong, because they loved his stew, and Vincent asked for another serving. Mukoda was happy that they enjoyed his meals and Bianca said that their bodies felt lighter. Then Mukoda decided to use his appraisal skill, and he learned that their stats were increased by his meals. He realized that the food from his online grocery can temporarily increase stats. He didn't want to have any problems, and decided to keep it a secret. The next morning they traveled further, and Mukoda had a lot of fun on the journey. In the evening, Mukoda learned that they had soon arrived in the kingdom of Venan. Mukoda was planning to prepare dinner, and he decided to cook a meal with the red boar meat. He decided to season the meat and marinate it in ginger sauce. Then he cut cabbage and put a lot of oil in the pan. When it was fried, an aroma was created and Vincent was already excited. A few moments later, his ginger-fried red boar was served, and his friends were looking forward to taste it. They went into a food coma because his dish was very delicious. They were surprised by the crispy texture and praised Mukoda for his cooking skills. Meanwhile, a strong monster smelled that delicious aroma. Suddenly Fenrir and his comrades looked at Mukoda strangely. They said that he should turn around because there was a legendary monster behind him. Mukoda was shocked and the Fenrir ordered Mukoda to feed him. Then Mukoda gave him his plate, but it wasn't enough for the monster. Mukoda immediately began to fry more meat and served it to the monster. The legendary monster loved his food, and Mukoda became his private chef. A few hours later, the Fenrir was full and he praised Mukoda's cooking skills. As a result, he decided to form a contract with Mukoda. He was shocked that a legendary Fenrir wanted to become his familiar. Mukoda wanted to refuse, but he had no choice and accepted to form a contract. Then the Fenrir created a familiar contract, and Mukoda acquired a powerful S-rank familiar. A few moments later, Mukoda wanted to name his Fenrir Pochi. The Fenrir replied that he was not a dog, and Mukoda asked if he liked the name Fel. The following day, Mukoda traveled further, and Werner was worried because they had almost reached the borders. Mukoda learned that people are afraid of Fel because one Fenrir can wipe out an entire country. Mukoda was worried because it might cause trouble for him, and Fel promised to take care of his problems. Then Fel was hungry, and Mukoda noticed that he didn't have much of the red boar meat left. Fel found out about this, and he planned to go hunting monsters. Meanwhile, Werner's party was amazed that Mukoda could give such orders to a Fenrir. A few minutes later, Fel returned, and he had defeated a huge rockbird. Werner explained to Mukoda that this B-rank monster is very strong, and the materials are worth a lot. Shortly afterwards, he began to fry the rockbird meat and caramelize the meat in the sauce. Following this, Fel's meal was prepared, and he loved his master's cooking. In the afternoon, they reached the border of the kingdom of Venan. Werner wanted to go ahead and explain the situation to the guards. Mukoda was then surrounded by guards because they saw Fel as a threat. Mukoda explained to the knight that he will take care of Fel and ordered Fel not to do any nonsense in this kingdom. Fel promised not to cause any trouble, and the commander of the knights allowed them entry into the kingdom of Venan. Then Mukoda learned that he has to pay a fee because he doesn't have a guild card. Afterwards, Werner said that it won't be long until the king finds out about Fel. He told Werner about his plan to travel and see the world. As a result, Werner recommended Mukoda to register in the Adventurer Guild or the Merchant Guild. Mukoda was unsure which guild to choose and learned that he is allowed to register in both. Afterwards, one of Margrave Lindell's servants showed up, and he tried to invite Mukoda to Margrave Lindell's mansion. Mukoda tried to politely decline the invitation, but the servant remained stubborn. Suddenly, Fel talked to the servant and threatened him not to cause any problems for his master. Werner was worried about Mukoda in case Margrave Lindell wanted revenge for refusing his invitation. Fel said that he will protect Mukoda, and they learned that Fel had fought an ancient dragon before. Then Mukoda signed that Werner's party had brought him safely to the kingdom of Venan. They told Mukoda that they had a lot of fun and said goodbye. Mukoda's next plan was to go to the Merchant Guild, and he told Fel about his plans. When entering the Merchant Guild, many were shocked by seeing Mukoda's pet. He said he wanted to register as a merchant. Vanessa then explained to him the ranks and fees in the Merchant Guild. After that, Mukoda successfully registered in the Merchant Guild and received the Iron rank. A few hours later, Fel was hungry, and Mukoda wanted to cook dinner. He took out the rockbird meat from the item box, and Mukoda wanted to eat rice. He ordered the ingredients and another pot from his grocery skill. Then he started frying the meat to make it nice and crispy. Mukoda also added soy sauce to the meat, and Fel did a taste check. Fel immediately wanted to eat more, and he learned that Mukoda was trying out different sauces. Mukoda was able to make his pet happy, and he learned that Fel likes garlic sauce the most. 20 minutes later, Mukoda's rice was ready, and he made himself a red boar steak bowl for dinner. Fel became jealous, and he asked Mukoda to serve him a red boar steak bowl too. After dinner he was tired, but he wanted to prepare something for tomorrow. The next morning he visited the Merchant Guild and brought goods that he wanted to sell. Vanessa asked him to wait a moment, and Mukoda was confused. Suddenly, Vanessa asked to follow her into a room. The reason for this was that the guildmaster wanted to see him. He was impressed by the quality of Mukoda's salt and pepper that he brought with him. Then he learned that he could become rich with the goods he bought from his online grocery store. Suddenly, the guildmaster started offering him a lot of money. Mukoda was surprised by this, and he received 17 gold for his goods. After receiving the money, Mukoda planned to register as an adventurer. Once he arrives, he should fill out a registration form. Mukoda immediately received his membership card and was surprised by the rude manner of the receptionist. Then the rules were explained to him, and he learned that he had to complete quests regularly. So Mukoda decided to take on his first quest and wanted to go collecting medical herbs tomorrow. Meanwhile, Fel waited obediently for his master and asked for his food. Then Mukoda looked at Fel's status, and he realized that he is overpowered. The next morning, Mukoda was excited to start his first quest in this world. He started to wash his face, and Fel was angry because Mukoda ignored him. Fel was hungry, and Mukoda replied that he will prepare him breakfast soon. Later, Mukoda ordered Fel to hunt monsters while he searched for medicinal herbs. Fel sensed that monsters were nearby and cast a protective spell on his master. Then Fel set off on the monster hunt, and Mukoda planned to begin his quest. He used his appraisal skill and was able to easily find many medicinal herbs. He found more than he needed and planned to prepare lunch next. Following this, he bought ingredients from the grocery store, and he decided to cook pasta. After chopping some onions, he added some meat and sauce into the pot and created a delicious aroma. Meanwhile, Fel returned, and Mukoda learned that he had defeated a rock bird again. Fel said that he had defeated more monsters that lay at the edge of the forest. Shortly after, he began cooking the pasta. He added the sauce on top and bought some Parmesan cheese. Fel learned that this dish was called spaghetti, and he loved it. After this, Mukoda recommended to Fel that he should eat the spaghetti with Parmesan cheese, and he experienced a food coma. Mukoda had a lot of fun with Fel, and he enjoyed his Isekai life. He later learned that his familiar had defeated countless powerful monsters. He was shocked by this and stored it in his item box. Then he learned that orcs are supposed to be edible, and Mukoda was shocked by this. A few moments later, they wanted to go back to town, and Fel offered Mukoda to ride on him. Mukoda accepted his offer, and he was excited. Suddenly Fel sped up, and Mukoda told him to slow down. Arriving in the town, Mukoda said he was glad he didn't die. Then he visited the Adventurers Guild, and Tina was impressed that he gathered so much as a newbie. Shortly afterwards, he told Tina that he wanted to sell monsters, and she learned about Mukoda's familiar. Tina immediately fell in love with Fel and sent him to Jack. Mukoda took out an orc from his item box, and Jack was shocked about it. He took Mukoda to the guild's warehouse and was already hearing rumors about him. Then Mukoda took out the defeated monsters from his item box, and he learned that many of them were A-rank monsters. He explained Butcher Jack that he only needs the meat and would sell the materials to the Adventurer Guild. Then Jack asked Mukoda to come back tomorrow, but Mukoda needed meat for his dinner. In the evening, Mukoda took out the ingredients and he already knew what to cook with the orc meat. Then he began to season the meat and dipped it into his egg mixture. Next he started frying the orc meat, and Fel was excited because he was very hungry. Finally, he added the remaining meat sauce and served dinner to Fel. Fel said that the orc meat is very tender, and Mukoda was surprised that orc tastes like premium pork. The next morning he visited Butcher Jack to collect his meat. Suddenly Jack gave him 200 gold coins, and Mukoda was shocked about it. He learned that the materials from the monsters were very valuable. He also received magic stones that A-rank monsters drop. Afterwards, Mukoda learned that some rumors say that Fel is actually a great wolf. Jack laughed, and he knew that Fel was definitely a legendary Fenrir. Mukoda realized that a lot of people were talking about him, and he planned to tell everyone in the future that Fel was a great wolf. Meanwhile, Fel was hungry again and asked Mukoda to cook him a meal. Following this, Mukoda left the city and found a place to camp. A few moments later, Mukoda was planning to reward Fel, and he asked Fel what he would like to eat. Mukoda couldn't decide, and Fel started drooling. Then he ordered many delicious dishes from Uber Eats and served Fel meat from Japan. While Fel ate the appetizer, Mukoda fried Wagu steak. Fel learned that Wagu steak is incredibly tasty and was surprised by the tenderness. Mukoda fried more steaks for Fel, and he was glad that Fel enjoyed this meal. After dinner, Fel said that he felt full of energy after eating Mukoda dishes. Mukoda activated his appraisal skill and was shocked to see that Fel's stats were increased by 50%. Fel cast a protective spell on Mukoda, and he wanted to go hunting monsters. A few moments later, Mukoda built himself a bed and immediately fell asleep in his Japanese futon mattress. Meanwhile, Fel spotted a rock bird and he easily defeated it. Then Fel found a giant deer and he tested his lightning spell on it. Fel had a lot of fun, and an orc general tried to defeat Fel. Unfortunately, he wasn't a serious opponent, and Fel defeated it with a single strike. Suddenly a chimera showed up, and Fel cast a very powerful lightning spell. The next morning, Mukoda woke up, and he was shocked after seeing the monsters. As a result, he decided never to serve Wagyu beef to Fel again. A few days passed, and Mukoda served Fel his lunch, and Fel praised his master for his cooking skills. Mukoda fried chicken, and he was happy that Fel liked his butter chicken dish. Then Mukoda ate sandwiches, and Mukoda asked Fel if he uses magic when he hunts monsters. Mukoda learned that Fel is the best at using wind magic, because he have been blessed by the goddess Ninrir. After that, he learned that if he has magical power, he can use magic too. Fel explained to Mukoda how to use magic, and he realized that his pet was a genius. A few moments later, he imagined creating a fireball. Mukoda's attempt to use magic failed, and he embarrassed himself. Suddenly Fel said that Mukoda must feel the magic flow in his body. Fel helped him a bit, and Mukoda began to understand how magic works. Following this, he tried to hit a can, but learned that his fireball is pathetically weak. Fel told him to increase his magical power by fighting monsters. Mukoda refused, but Fel kidnapped him and forced him to gain battle experience. However, they spotted a group of goblins and Fel told Mukoda to attack them with a fireball. Mukoda was afraid, but Fel yelped to provoke the goblins. As a result, the goblins started hunting Mukoda, and he had no other option but to fight them. Suddenly he tripped over a stone, and he screwed up. He thought he was going to die, but Fel's barrier magic protected him. Then Mukoda started fighting against the goblins, and he managed to become stronger. Mukoda's last fireball caused a huge explosion, and he was surprised by it. Suddenly Mukoda was out of mana, and Fel took care of the rest. During the night, Mukoda woke up, and Fel asked if he was having fun. Mukoda replied that he never wants to fight monsters again. Then Fel noticed that Mukoda's level had increased, and he was happy about it. In addition, Fel gave him a Goblin King as a gift that had a magic stone. The reason for the gift was that Fel wanted a reward, and asked Mukoda for Wagu beef. Mukoda refused and told him that he would never serve him Wagu beef again. Afterwards, Fel was hungry, but Mukoda still felt exhausted. As a result, he ordered dinner from Uber Eats using his unique skill. Fel tried some otherworld sweetbread and he was surprised by the delicious taste. A few moments later, he wanted a second helping, and Mukoda told him to brush his teeth before going to sleep. Fel explained to Mukoda that he doesn't get diabetic or cavities because the blessings of goddess Ninrir make him resistant to all kinds of diseases. Mukoda was jealous and he also wanted to get a blessing. Meanwhile, goddess Ninrir was watching Mukoda, and she craved for sweets. The next morning, Mukoda reached the next town, and he was surrounded by knights. Mukoda explained that he is an adventurer, and Fel is his familiar. Mukoda said that he is a great wolf, and Fel felt insulted. Fel used telepathy and told Mukoda that he is not a great wolf. Mukoda was surprised that Fel could use telepathy, and the knight allowed them to enter. A few moments later, the townspeople were shocked to see a great wolf. Mukoda rented a place for Fel to sleep at Elmira's inn, and he planned to go buy a map. Next, he visited a bookstore, and he found a book about magic. He learned that it costs 7 gold coins and was surprised that paper is a rare item in this world. He also asked for a map, but the bookstore didn't sell any. Afterwards, he went to a library, but he had no luck and couldn't buy a map. In the evening, Fel was angry because Mukoda returned much later than expected. Following this, Mukoda used his online grocery skill and served Fel food from the other world. Fel tried it and loved the salty taste of the meat. Meanwhile, Mukoda cooked rice because he wanted to make a chicken bowl. A few moments later, he dipped the fried chicken in delicious sauce, and he was excited to eat it. Fel watched Mukoda enjoying his dinner, and he wanted a portion of it too, because he was getting hungry again. The next day, Mukoda spotted a pub and was hoping to find a map. He asked some drunk guys if they had some time. Mukoda paid for their booze, and the adventurers started liking him. Then he said that he was looking for a map about this country. He told them that he was a traveling merchant and comes from Kingdom Reregistering. Mukoda learned that there are dungeons in this world that contain many treasures. Then he said that he was looking for a map. The adventurers said that they had a map and told Mukoda to keep it secret. Frank and his friends wanted to sell the card to Mukoda and demanded a gold coin for it. Mukoda thought about it, and he decided to pay the price for the map. A few moments later, Mukoda was laughed at for being scammed. He learned that he can get a map in the Adventurers Guild for 1 silver coin. In the afternoon, Mukoda was still depressed, and Fel cheered him up. Then Fel said he wanted to eat seafood and they traveled on. Next we see goddess Ninrir, and she was jealous of Fel because he got delicious food from another world every day from Mukoda. In the evening, Mukoda rode on Fel and they arrived at a river. Fel said he wanted to eat fish, but they didn't have a fishing rod. As a result, Fel used a lightning spell, and Mukoda was shocked. He caught countless fish, and Mukoda learned that Fel shocked them into a near-dead state. After that, Mukoda started collecting the fishes, and he looked at them with his appraisal. Suddenly Fel said he wanted to eat the purple fish, but they were poisonous. Fel was sad, and Mukoda explained to him that he will not cook poisonous fish. Shortly afterwards, Mukoda planned to grill the fish, and they went to collect firewood. He also ordered ingredients from the grocery store, and Fel asked him to order meat. After ordering all the ingredients, Mukoda started cooking the dishes. He was frying fish, and Fel couldn't wait to eat. Mukoda cut the king tout into a fillet, and he planned to grill it in foil. Next, he added the spices and planned to use butter to create a delicious flavor. Meanwhile, Fel was hungry, but Mukoda wasn't finished yet. He began to fry the remaining fish in hot oil. A few moments later, his fish dish was prepared. They started eating, and both experienced a food coma. Afterwards, Mukoda wanted to drink beer with the fish, and he enjoyed it. While Mukoda enjoyed his meal with beer, Fel finished his portion. He asked Mukoda to make more servings, and he immediately went to the stove. After dinner, Mukoda stumbled upon a slime that crossed his path. Mukoda learned that slimes are very weak monsters, and he doesn't have to be afraid of the slimes. Mukoda and the slime became friends, and he learned that it was still a baby. He was worried about the baby slime and planned to feed him. Suddenly the slime ran to an empty bottle. It dissolved the trash and Mukoda was amazed by it. The slime almost dissolved Mukoda's stove, but Mukoda stopped it in time. A few moments later, Mukoda praised the slime for dissolving all the garbage. Mukoda liked the slime and learned that he had tamed the monster. As a result, he received an adorable baby slime as his new familiar. Mukoda named his new slime Sui, and he learned that the slime liked his new name. The next day, Mukoda cast earth magic, but his magic power was pathetic. Fel asked if he wanted to fight monsters to train his earth magic. Mukoda replied that he never wanted to experience such a terrible day, like the goblin hunt again. Then he drank water from a bottle, and he noticed that Sui has grown. He wondered if Sui leveled up by eating the trash from his world. Meanwhile, Fel was hungry and told Mukoda to feed him. Mukoda served his familiar orc meat bowl, and Sui was happy to get a portion too. Fel immediately started eating the food, and Sui started eating too. After feeding his familiars, Mukoda started eating. Suddenly, Fel said he wanted a second serving, and Sui also got a second serving too. A few hours later, their stomachs were full, and Mukoda looked at Sui's status. Following this, Sui started cleaning the dishes, and Mukoda liked his new slime. He was very proud of Sui and praised him for his good work. Next, Mukoda had the idea to show Sui desserts from his world, and he ordered dorayaki. They enjoyed the sweets, and Fel was amazed by the bean paste. Mukoda said that dorayaki are delicious, but Oreo tastes even better. Fel immediately wanted to eat Oreos, and Mukoda told him to calm down. The next morning, Fel was deep in thought, and he came up with a great idea. Sui woke up Mukoda, and Fel wanted to discuss something important with his master. He told Mukoda that he had received a message from Goddess Ninrir last night. Mukoda learned that Goddess Ninrir is willing to gift him with a blessing. But in exchange, she wanted to receive sweets from the other world every week. Additionally, he learned that he only gets a minor blessing, which makes him resistant to status changes and boost his wind magic. Mukoda accepted the condition and learned how to send prayer offerings to the goddess. A few minutes later, he sent sweets to the goddess and received a minor blessing. Then we see Ninrir, and she was happy with the sweets sent by Mukoda. She experienced a food coma and was amazed by the sweets from the other world. Then she realized that the sweets were addictive, like Krabby Patties, and couldn't stop eating. In the following days, Mukoda tested his earth spell and learned that his magical power was increased. He started training and was exhausted after a few hours. However, he rewarded himself with chocolate and drank an energy drink. Then Fel returned and he smelled that Mukoda had eaten something. Fel also wanted to eat chocolate and said he was exhausted. As a result, Mukoda ordered chocolate from Amazon, and Fel thanked his master. Suddenly, Goddess Ninrir spoke to Mukoda, and she also asked him to send chocolate. Mukoda was surprised about her message and realized that he had become her errand boy. Following this, he sent her sweets, and she thanked Mukoda. After this, Fel planned to show Mukoda a fun place and they traveled on. A few moments later, they stood in front of a cave and Mukoda learned that this place is a dungeon. Fel wanted to help his master so that he could become stronger when fighting monsters. Mukoda tried to sneak away, but Fel wouldn't let him escape. Also, Fel said that only weak monsters live in the dungeon and that he will cast a barrier spell on Mukoda. He managed to encourage Mukoda, and Mukoda wanted to prepare for the dungeon expedition. As a result, he used his online grocery skills and ordered many delicious dishes. Mukoda told Fel that eating food from his world increases status. Then Mukoda began to eat, and Fel was surprised that he was right. In addition, he learned that Sui leveled up when eating non-food items. A few hours later, Mukoda was full and he looked at his stats, which had increased by 20%. Then they entered the dungeon, and Mukoda asked Fel to cast the barrier spell on him. Mukoda was walking very slowly and Fel couldn't wait to meet the first monster. Suddenly Mukoda discovered a slime, and he had a bad conscience about killing the slime, but Sui defeated it with an acid attack. Afterwards, more slimes appeared, and Mukoda's earth magic became stronger due to the food from the other world. Later they went deeper into the dungeon, and Mukoda accidentally used his sword instead of earth magic. Fel got angry, and Mukoda wondered why monsters were attacking him even though Fel was with him. He learned that the dungeon monsters consider anything that enters an enemy. Following this, he desperately cast his stone bullet spell. As a result, he managed to defeat 2 kobolds. On the way to the next floor, he was told that there were only 10 kobolds there. When he got to the last floor, he learned that there were more than 10 kobolds, and he wanted to go back to the surface. But Fel forced Mukoda to fight the monsters and promised to help him if necessary. Suddenly, Fel pushed him towards the monsters, and Sui accompanied his master. Mukoda was scared and the monsters tried to attack him. Unfortunately, the monsters' attack failed and Sui defeated the first group of monsters. After that, the next group of monsters launched their attack. Mukoda used his stone bullet magic and managed to wipe out almost all monsters with the help of Sui. Meanwhile, 2 monsters planned to escape, but they were killed by another monster. At that moment, a boss monster appeared and Mukoda was shocked. He was terribly afraid, and Fel explained to Mukoda that there was a kobold king standing in front of him. Mukoda planned to fight the monster. He ran away and tried to hurt the monster with his stone bullets. Suddenly, Fel mentioned that his barrier might not be able to completely withstand the monster's attack. As a result, Mukoda managed to fire off a powerful stone bullet that hit Kobold King in the head. Unfortunately, Mukoda was unable to defeat his opponent and he was out of mana. The Kobold King attacked Mukoda, and he learned that Fel had lied when he said that his barrier could not resist the attack. Suddenly, Sui attacked the Kobold King and defeated it with his acid skill. Sui began to glow, and Mukoda fainted from exhaustion. In the afternoon, Mukoda woke up and he noticed that they were out of the dungeon. Sui said that he was worried about Mukoda, and he was shocked because Sui was able to speak. Mukoda learned that Sui evolved after defeating the Kobold King. He was happy and looked at Sui's status. Sui was level 7 and he got an emotional damage because his slime was stronger than himself. Mukoda suspected that Sui was a rare slime and asked Sui if he knows something about it. At that moment, Fel returned and his mouth was full of blood. After that, he asked Mukoda to make lunch and he bought ingredients from his online grocery. Mukoda already knew what he was going to cook and immediately got to work. First he chopped onions and planned to fry rockbirds in hot oil. Then he added eggs and mixed it into the meat. He also cooked rice and served his familiar a rockbird rice bowl with eggs. Fel and Sui loved his dish and Mukoda was happy that they enjoyed it. They praised him and immediately asked for a second serving. Later, Sui said that he had talked a lot with Uncle Fel, and Mukoda laughed. Mukoda also started calling his Fenrir Uncle Fel and teased Fel a little bit. Fel told Sui not to call him uncle, and he got angry. Suddenly Sui started crying, and Mukoda took Sui in his arms. Fel apologized and allowed Sui to call him Uncle Fel. As a result, Sui calmed down and Mukoda loved his cute little slime. 3 weeks passed and Fel crossed a dangerous forest. Mukoda was shocked after learning that dangerous boss-rank monsters live in this forest. Fel said that Mukoda doesn't have to worry because the monster cannot beat him. Mukoda ordered him to turn back, but Fel refused. A few moments later, some Orthoros appeared and surrounded Fel. He told his master to hide behind a tree and enjoy the show. Then an Orthoros tried to attack Fel, but Fel killed it with a wind spell. Mukoda was shocked because it was the first time he had seen Fel's immense power. After Fel defeated a monster, the other Orthoros ran away. Mukoda learned about Fel's skill, and Sui thought Fel's skill was cool. In the evening, they planned to spend the night in the forest, and Fel noticed that Mukoda was nervous. Fel told Mukoda to relax, and he asked his master to prepare dinner. Suddenly, Sui also said that he was hungry, and Fel was jealous because Sui was Mukoda's favorite familiar. Then he learned that they still need 3 weeks to cross the forest. He realized that they barely have enough meat to get them through. At that moment, he decided to use the black serpent meat for dinner. He started cutting the meat into small pieces. He then seasoned the snake meat with spices from his online grocery. The meat absorbed the spices, and Mukoda was confident of cooking a delicious dish. A few moments later, he fried the meat, and Fel noticed the delicious smell. Mukoda cooked chili black serpent, and he did a taste check. He was surprised by the delicious taste, and Fel wanted to taste it too. He loved this spicy dish, and Sui also wanted to try the spicy black serpent dish. Following this, Mukoda started feeding his familiars, and they didn't stop eating. They even ate Mukoda's portion, and he made himself a sandwich with the leftover meat. The next morning, they traveled further, and Mukoda was nervous about being attacked again. Suddenly, Fel stopped and he discovered healing mushrooms, which are used to make shield potions. Mukoto was impressed and decided to collect some healing mushrooms. A few minutes later, Sui began to glow and Mukoto was worried about his beloved slime. Sui replied that he was fine, and Mukoto looked at Sui's stats. Sui learned a new skill, and Fel explained the reason why. Mukoto was surprised that Sui had learned to make shield potions and praised his slime. Sui then tested out his new skill, and slurp juice came out of his body. Mukoto filled the slurp juice into a bottle and was surprised by it. Sui produced more slurp juice and he realized that his slime was able to produce potions in different qualities. Fel suspected that Sui was a legendary slime, and Mukoto was proud of his beloved familiar for being a legendary slime. In the afternoon they encountered a griffin and Mukoto was scared. The griffin was able to speak human language and he challenged Fel to a duel. He wanted to become the leader of the griffin and Fel accepted the fight. Before the fight started, Mukoto told Fel to leave the griffin alive. Then Fel attacked, and his opponent tried to dodge Fel's powerful attacks. The griffin attacked Fel with his feathers and kicked up the dust. Then his opponent tried to secretly attack Fel, but the griffin's attempt failed. Fel proved that he lived up to his title as the strongest monster and dodged all attacks with ease. Suddenly he created a tornado, and Mukoto ordered Fel to stop his spell. As a result, Fel won the duel, and Mukoto didn't want to let the monster die. Mukoto saved the monster by pouring shield potion over the griffin. The griffin was sad, because he hadn't caused any damage, but Mukoto noticed a scratch on Fel. Then the griffin began calling his comrades, and he was recognized as the new leader. He thanked Fel and gave Mukoto a feather to protect him from being eaten. A few hours later, Mukoto prepared dinner, and Fel wanted an extra large portion. Following this, Mukoto began to marinate the meat with panko. Next, he cooked it in hot oil and waited until it was crispy. As a result, he served his familiars piping hot orc tonkatsu, which was his familiar's favorite dish. Mukoto looked at his familiars and was glad that they liked it. After that, Mukoto did a taste check and he still found it strange to eat orcs in this world. Despite this, the orc meat was very tasty and he was grateful for the food. Suddenly, Fel said he was still hungry and Mukoto started cooking more servings. A few days later, they were finally out of the forest and Mukoto was happy about it. He had looked at the map and their next destination was the kingdom of Leonhardt. Suddenly, Mukoto said that they are almost out of meat, and Fel was shocked about this. He immediately started running and they spotted a carriage being attacked by bandits. Mukoto ordered Fel to help them, and Mukoto promised him to cook his favorite dish as a reward. Suddenly, Fel appeared, and he ordered Sui to cover Mukoto's ears. Fel yelped and ordered the bandits to drop their weapons. As a result, Merchant Lambert was saved, and he thanked Mukoto. Lars from the Phoenix Adventurer Party also thanked for saving them. Then Mukoto decided to accompany Merchant Lambert to the next city. A few moments later, Nick wondered if Fel was a Fenrir, because according to the rumors, Fel was listed as a great wolf. But their leader was sure that Fel was a Fenrir, and Mukoto was worried because he hoped that Fel's identity as Fenrir would not be found out. The reason for this was that he wanted to live his life as an ordinary citizen without getting into trouble. After this, the sun rises down, and Fel demanded his promised feast from Mukoto. Sui wanted to eat meat, and Mukoto looked at what meat they had left. At that moment, Mukoto had a great idea, and he planned to use all the remaining meat for the feast. He started putting the meat in a plastic bag and mixed it in flour. Then he fried the meat and served carriage of various meat. Fel liked Mukoto's dish, and Mukoto immediately started cooking more servings. Meanwhile, Merchant Lambert and the adventurers smelled the delicious aroma. They spotted Mukoto, who had cooked something delicious. Mukoto asked if they wanted to try it, and they were amazed by the delicious taste. Mukoto was happy that they liked it and cooked more of the karaj from various meat. The Phoenix Adventurer Party thanked Mukoto and said they would take care of the night watch. Suddenly, the bandits started causing problems, and Mukoto said that Fel is in a bad mood. The next morning, they arrived in the city of Carolina. Lambert told Mukoto that he owns a store here and his family sells leather products. Then the bandits were handed over to the guards, and Lars wanted to give their report to the guild. Mukoto planned to accompany them, and said he would stop by Lambert's store later. A few moments later, Mukoto learned that he had to re-register because he hadn't accepted a quest for a month. He decided to re-register, and said that he had a new familiar. Suddenly, some adventurers made fun of him, because they didn't know that Sui could produce slurp juice. Then Mukoto wanted to sell the monsters that Fel had defeated. Lars and his friends were curious, and asked if they could see Fel's hunted prey. They learned that Fel had captured countless A-rank monsters, and were shocked about it. Nick was sure that Lars was right and learned that Fel was a legendary Fenrir. Meanwhile, Butcher Ron was fired up to take care of these monsters. Afterwards, Lars found out that the meat in last night's meal was from the expensive A-rank monsters. They were shocked by this and apologized to Mukoda because they feel guilty about eating his expensive meat. Mukoda said that they don't have to apologize and that he still has enough meat. Lars was grateful for his kindness and said that Mukoda can call him at any time for help. In the evening he looked at his guild ID and he planned to become a F-rank adventurer. Suddenly Goddess Ninrir spoke to him with telepathy because he had forgotten to send her sweets. As a result, he immediately sent her many different sweets that she hadn't tried yet. The next morning he learned that Goblin Hunt gives the most points to increase his rank. Mukoda wanted to go collect medicinal herbs, but Fel ordered him to go hunt goblins. They started arguing because Fel wanted to move on as quickly as possible. The reason for this was that he wanted to eat tasty sea monsters. Suddenly Fel took advantage of Mukoda's weakness and asked Sui which quest he prefers. Sui wanted to fight monsters and convinced Mukoda to accept the Goblin Hunt quest. A few hours later, he learned that he gets 3 points for defeating 5 goblins. Then they discovered goblins and Sui defeated the monsters with ease. Mukoda realized that he had to take the ears as evidence. He got an emotional damage after cutting off the goblin's ears. Following this, more goblins appeared, and Sui went into battle mode. Sui defeated countless goblins and did not let any of them escape. Suddenly Fel discovered the goblins' settlement, and Mukoda didn't want to go there. A few hours passed and Sui thanked his master for this great day. Fel said that Mukoda still had to collect the ears, and he refused. Fel forced him to cut off his ears, and Mukoda was traumatized by the day. Then Mukoda said that they still need to dispose of the goblins' bodies, and Fel suggested burning them. Mukoda didn't want to start a fire and learned that Sui can melt them. As a result, Sui turned into a giant slime and he was surprised that Sui had evolved again. Shortly afterwards, Sui mass-produced himself and Fel was shocked by this ability. Sui began melting the goblin corpses and Mukoda was impressed. Suddenly Mukoda's family were hungry and they asked for something to eat. Mukoda was still mentally exhausted and he planned to order bread for lunch. Following this, he served his familiars a ready-made bread set. Sui liked the delicious bread, and Mukoda told Fel that he had ordered many breads with meat. He then complimented Mukoda, and Mukoda was flattered. Later on, he enjoyed his sweet coffee and wondered if he would get in trouble after handing over the countless goblin ears to the guild. Later, everyone stared at Mukoda because he brought a large amount of goblin ears to the guild. He already suspected that the number of defeated goblins would cause problems. Then a receptionist showed up, and he learned that the guildmaster wanted to talk to him. Guildmaster Willem introduced himself and learned that Mukoda's familiars had destroyed a goblin settlement. He thanked Mukoda and expected nothing less from his Fenrir. Then he learned that the king allowed him to live freely in this kingdom, but in return, he was supposed to help in emergencies. Mukoda was relieved by this message because he was not involved in the king's conflicts. Afterwards, Guildmaster Willem offered him a deal to be immediately promoted to a C-rank adventurer. Willem told him about his request, but Mukoda planned to refuse. That's when they learned about the high-ranking quests that weren't pickup because not many adventurers were qualified for them. Fel planned to take care of them, and Mukoda understood that he can trust Guildmaster Willem. Suddenly he showed Guildmaster Willem the S-rank monsters that Fel had defeated. Butcher Ron was impressed by Fel's hunted prey. Then Mukoda learned that the guild can't buy all of them because they don't have enough money for it. Meanwhile, Sui also wanted to defeat tons of strong monsters like Fel. Following this, Guildmaster Willem said that he will immediately take care of Mukoda's promotion to a C-rank adventurer. A few hours later, his familiars wanted to eat meat and Mukoda ordered fresh vegetables. He started cutting the vegetables and boiled rockbird meat in hot water. Sui wanted to help his master and Mukoda thanked his beloved slime for his help. After the first dish was prepared, he started cooking the second dish. He fried vegetables and rockbird meat to make rockbird and pepper stir-fry. Then they started eating dinner, and Mukoda opened a can of beer. Sui wanted to know what brown sauce is, and he learned that it is called oyster sauce. Then Mukoda made himself a sandwich, and Sui wanted a bite too. A few hours later, Mukoda noticed that Fel couldn't sleep. Sui asked if he should destroy the hut to make more room for Fel to sleep. Mukoda didn't allow it, and he took out a futon to make it more comfortable for Fel. The next morning, Mukoda received his guild card, and he was surprised that it was silver. Additionally, he learned about the reward he received from the Goblin Hunt quest and the monsters he sold. As a result, Mukoda received 2,000 gold coins, and Mukoda realized that he became very wealthy. He was afraid of being robbed by bandits and planned to keep it a secret. Next, Guildmaster Willem asked him to complete 2 S-rank quests. He learned about a metal lizard that is causing major problems for the kingdom of Vinan. Afterwards, he told them about the second quest, and Fel was looking forward to eating the meat of the bloodhorn bulls. Mukoda learned that it tasted similar to Wagyu steak, and they became excited. Fel wanted to go hunt the bloody horn bulls immediately, but they were asked to defeat the metal lizard first. He also wanted to go shopping and visited his merchant friend Lambert. Mukoda told Lambert that he wanted to buy a new bag. Lambert showed his friend different bags, and Mukoda was amazed by the high quality of the bags. Mukoda led his adorable slime Sui to choose a bag, and he asked which one Sui likes the most. Suddenly, Sui jumped into a bag and looked for the boar leather bag. Then Mukoda looked around Lambert's store, and he bought more things in the store. He was a hype beast and asked his friend how much the items cost. Merchant Lambert wanted to give his friend a discount on the items because Mukoda had saved his life. Mukoda thanked Lambert and got the Isekai off-white items at half price. On the side, Lambert asked if Mukoda had any black serpent skin left. He wanted to buy it from the Adventurers Guild, but it sold out immediately. As a result, Mukoda promised to sell the black snakeskin to his friend Lambert next time. Later, it was getting dark and Fel was hungry. Mukoda decided to make carriage out of the black serpent meat. He started marinating the meat and deep-fried it until the black serpent meat was crispy. Mukoda did a taste check and he was amazed by the delicious taste. Meanwhile, Fel and Sui also wanted to taste it, but Mukoda told them to wait a little bit more. After this, Mukoda immediately prepared their portions and they were excited. Sui and Fel loved their master's cooking and he immediately made more for them. A few moments later, his familiars were full, and Mukoda got the idea to fry some carriage for tomorrow's lunch. Following this, he bought a can of beer and enjoyed his carriage beer combi. He loves this life and was glad that he was summoned into this world. The next morning, Mukoda and his familiars searched for the metal lizard. Suddenly, Fel sensed in which direction the metal lizard's nest was. Mukoda wanted to wait outside the cave, but Fel forced his master to accompany him. Once inside the cave, they found a metal lizard that was glowing. Mukoda determined that it was a mithril lizard that had evolved by eating the mithril ore. Fel explained to Mukoda that magic won't work against the mithril lizard because mithril can repel magic. Suddenly, Fel attacked the monster with a lightning spell and easily defeated it. Fel explained to Mukoda that magic can still work by using a powerful spell that overpowers the mithril lizard's ability. Following this, he stored the lizard in his item box and discovered mithril ore. He wanted to collect the mithril ore and had the idea of using it to make armor. Fel forbade Mukoda from making armor out of mithril, saying that nothing is stronger than his barrier. Fel also wanted to go hunting for bloody horn bulls and dragged Mukoda to the next quest. Mukoda was sad that he couldn't collect mithril and looked for bloody horn bulls. Afterwards, Fel went hunting a group of bloody horn bulls, and Sui wanted to accompany him. A few moments later, he felt a strong wind and learned that his familiars had defeated the entire group of bloody horn bulls. He looked at the bloody horn bulls and planned to put them in his item box. Then Sui said that he wanted to help his master collect the cows. After collecting the cows, Mukoda served his familiars lunch. He served them sandwiches with the fried rockbird meat that he had prepared yesterday. He also ordered Pepsi, and Sui wanted to know what Mukoda drinks. Mukoda let his slime taste it, and Sui loved the sweet flavor. Fel became curious and Mukoda let him try some soda too. Mukoda could tell from Fel's reaction that he liked Pepsi. Then Fel started burping, and Mukoda had a lot of fun with his familiars. Later, Butcher Ron and Guildmaster Willem learned that Fel had defeated a mithril lizard. They were shocked about this, because this kind of monster is very rare. Mukoda learned that the last mithril lizard was found 400 years ago, and that only 4 mithril mountains have been discovered in the world so far. In addition, it was explained to him that he would receive 5,000 gold coins for it, and that the materials would be sent to the king. Afterwards, he showed the hunted bloody horn bulls, and they were shocked to see Fel's prey. Later, Mukoda was worried about his peaceful life, but his familiars cheered him up. He planned to prepare dinner, and his familiars looked forward to it. Then Mukoda took out a big piece of bloody horn bull meat. He sliced into many pieces and served his familiars bloody horn bull steak for dinner. A few moments later, dinner was served, and they made a taste check. They realized that the meat of a bloody horn bull was very juicy. Fel immediately wanted a second helping, and Mukoda immediately fried more pieces. He also added Fel's favorite steak sauce to the meat, and Fel loved it. Mukoda was very excited and tried out the other sauces too. A few hours later they were full, and Fel complimented Mukoda. His familiars loved Mukoda's cooking skills, and he was flattered by it. Following this, he realized that he had forgotten to send the offerings to the goddess Ninrir. He wanted to send her sweets immediately, and goddess Ninrir was watching him. She couldn't wait, and Mukoda sent her a big package full of sweets. Suddenly, Mukoda was greeted by other goddesses of this world, who learned about Mukoda's unique skill. Mukoda overheard their conversations, and got a bad feeling. Then the three goddesses wanted to give him their blessings in order to receive offerings from Mukoda too. Goddess Kisharli said that Ninrir's minor blessing does not protect him from all status effects. Kisharli and Agni offered to give Mukoda their blessings, so that he could use powerful magic. Mukoda wanted to refuse their offer, but he was forced to accept it. Then the goddess Rusalka realized that she was left out and she became sad. She began to cry, and the goddesses ordered Mukoda to cheer up Rusalka. Sui was worried about Mukoda and thought that he was sick. Suddenly, Mukoda thought of a great idea and asked goddess Rusalka to give Sui a blessing. A few moments later, Sui received the blessing from goddess Rusalka, and she stopped crying. Then Mukoda became the errand boy of the goddesses and sent their ordered goods. Mukoda was exhausted, and he learned that the minor blessings had increased his stats. The next morning, he tested his new skills and was able to use powerful spells. He was grateful for the blessings and noticed that he also received more mana. Next, he asked Sui to test his new skills and ordered him to create a water ball. Sui concentrated his magical power, and Mukoda was amazed at the amount of water Sui could create. Suddenly, Sui destroyed a tree with his water spell, and Mukoda realized that Sui had become overpowered. Then Mukoda used his new skills to build a house to stay overnight. In the evening he was finished, and Mukoda showed his self-built house to his familiar. Fel was not impressed, and he told Mukoda that he was hungry. The next morning, Mukoda woke up in his self-made earth house. Then he dissolved his spell, and Fel asked him what his plan was for today. Mukoda said that he planned to deliver the defeated black serpent to his friend Lambert, after picking up the remaining meat from the Amazon warehouse. He then visited Butcher Ron, who was happy to see Mukoda. He gave Mukoda the rewards for the Bloody Hornbull's materials. Before Mukoda left, he asked Ron to take care of a black serpent. In the afternoon, Mukoda took out his ingredients to prepare lunch. He was excited because he bought a meat grinder from the online grocery. Then he started putting Bloody Hornbull meat in the meat grinder. Sui wanted to do that too, and he had a lot of fun making minced meat. Following this, Mukoda started frying onions to create a delicious aroma. He mixed various ingredients into the meat and kneaded it. Sui helped his master to form patties, and Mukoda added Mr. Crab's secret formula into the meat. A few moments later, Mukoda served Bloody Hornbull and Orc General hamburger steak. They did a taste check, and his familiars complimented him on his delicious Isekai hamburger steak. Later he took care of his laundry, and he was dissatisfied with the soap of this world. He got a great idea and bought some products from the online grocery. Then he filled the products from his world into other bottles. Next, Mukoda delivered Lambert black serpent skin and was offered 50 gold coins. Suddenly, Mukoda told his friend Lambert that he was registered in the Merchant Guild. He showed Lambert high-quality soap and shampoo from his world. Mukoda presented Lambert with the products he had brought with him, and Lambert was amazed. He was grateful to have met Mukoda and treated Mukoda like a god. The reason for this was that he was looking for a birthday present for his wife. Besides, Mukoda learned that Lambert have a bath, and he was excited to see Lambert's bathtub. Lambert told Mukoda that bathtubs are difficult to make and can cost several hundred gold coins. Mukoda really wanted one, and Lambert planned to introduce him to a store. Following this, he gave Lambert some beauty products for his wife's birthday. The next morning he visited Lambert again, and his wife ran to Mukoda. Lambert introduced his wife Marie, who was pleased to meet Mukoda. He learned that Marie had found out about the soap and the other products. As a result, Lambert asked if he could sell it for Mukoda in his store. Lambert was actually against it because they are a leather store, but Marie wanted to show these products to all the women in the world. Mukoda accepted the deal and decided to sell his beauty products in Lambert's store. A few days later, Fel waited for Mukoda's return because he delivered a large amount of goods to Lambert's store. Fel planned to find a new dungeon, but Mukoda rejected his idea. Then Mukoda visited the Adventurers Guild and some adventurers talked about wyverns. Mukoda entered Guildmaster Willem's office and was shocked. The reason for this was that he got 5,800 gold coins for finding a mithril mine. Suddenly Anna appeared, and she told Guildmaster Willem about an emergency. Mukoda learned that a swarm of wyverns appeared nearby, and many adventurers were injured by fighting them. Mukoda was shocked to see the injured adventurers and planned to help them. He gave Guildmaster Willem some healing potion that Sui had made. A short time later, Willem announced an emergency quest, and Mukoda learned that he had to take part in it. All adventurers were asked to protect the city, but Mukoda didn't want to fight against wyverns. Suddenly Fel appeared, planned to take care of the wyvern problem. The reason for this was that Fel was bored and wanted to eat wyvern meat. Fel said he didn't need any support in battle, and Guildmaster Willem entrusted Fel with saving the city. As a result, Mukoda was forced to fight wyverns against his will, and they set off. Arriving on the battlefield, Mukoda spotted flying monsters. Sui was excited, and Fel planned to teach him how to defeat flying monsters. Then some wyverns tried to hit Fel, but he dodged all of their attacks. Fel explained to Sui that he has the options of targeting the monster's heads or wings. At that moment, Sui aimed at a wyvern's head, but he missed. Despite everything, a wyvern crashed, and Fel took care of it. After that, the two started going in fighting mode, and Mukoda hid behind a rock. He was shocked because his adorable slime was becoming like his battle junkie Fenrir. Then a wyvern appeared behind Mukoda and attacked him. Mukoda was frightened, but Sui emerged to protect his master. Fel wasn't about to let the wyvern escape and cut off the wyvern's head. After the fight was over, his familiars were hungry, and Mukoda started cooking lunch. He took the minced meat out of his item box, and Fel was looking forward to eating it. Then he fried the patties and served his familiars 3 types of ground meat cutlets. They took a bite, and Mukoda loved the freshly fried patty, which tasted better than KFC. Fel and Sui also loved the cooked dish, and Mukoda was happy to be praised. Meanwhile, Anna was worried because Mukoda had not returned yet. In the evening, Mukoda returned, and Guildmaster Willem was happy that he had returned safely. Following this, Mukoda told Willem that Fel hunted down all the wyverns in this area. The adventurers were relieved, and Mukoda learned that half of the adventurers would have died without Fel's help. Afterwards, Fel revealed that they returned so late because they had lunch. He later took the meat to Butcher Ron, but the guild was only able to purchase half of the materials. Mukoda didn't think it was a bad thing, because he just wanted the meat anyway. Then he planned to sleep, but he remembered that he still had to send offerings to the goddesses. Suddenly, Ninrir sent Mukoda a private message, and she asked for a larger portion of sweets than the other goddesses. At that moment, Kasharli also started sending him a private message, and asked him to send her shampoo. Suddenly Mukoda said that they should stop sending private messages, because when he send the offerings, the other goddesses will find out about it anyway. Agni got angry at her friends and said to the other goddesses that she will also ask for something. The next morning, Mukoda planned to buy a bathtub. As a result, he visited the Ilario company that Lambert had recommended him. When he arrived, he was immediately shown a bathtub and learned that it cost 300 gold coins. Mukoda couldn't decide, and salesman Freddy showed him the latest model in their store. He realized that the bathtub wasn't blinding him at all, and wasn't impressed by it. Then Mukoda decided to buy the green bathtub. Mukoda wanted to show that he was not poor, and paid with cash. A few moments later he left the store and was happy to have acquired a bathtub. He found a place, and Fel planned to go hunting, while Mukoda took a bath. Then Fel cast a barrier spell on Mukoda, and he planned to set up his bathtub. Beforehand, he created a stone wall so that no one could disturb him while he was bathing. Sui used his water magic and filled the bathtub with water. Additionally, Mukoda used a small fireball to heat the water. A few moments later he washed himself off with otherworldly soap before climbing into the bathtub. Then he was ready, and Sui enjoyed the hot water. Mukoda loved bathing and felt like being in a public bath in Japan. Afterwards they drank otherworld fruit milk, and Sui also loved bathing. Following this, Mukoda planned to prepare lunch. He cut the wyvern meat into thin slices and added various ingredients to the pot. However, he cooked rice and created a special gyudon with wyvern meat. Mukoda noticed that Fel still hadn't returned, and he used the time to cook a stew. He ordered the ingredients from Amazon and started chopping the vegetables. Next he fried wyvern meat with butter. He went all out by preparing this meal, and also added red wine and various sauces. Suddenly, Sui sensed that Fel was on his way home, and he defeated a T-Rex. Mukoda learned that it was an earth dragon, and Mukoda was shocked about it. The reason for this was that Mukoda wanted to live a peaceful life in this world, but Fel always brings back S-rank monsters from his hunts. Meanwhile, Fel smelled the delicious food being cooked and wanted to eat immediately. Mukoda said he was dirty, but Fel didn't want to be washed. Mukoda said that he has to bathe first because otherwise he won't get anything to eat. Afterwards he got dog products to clean Fel. He started brushing Fel's fur, and Sui helped Mukoda with it. Then Mukoda learned a new side of Fel, and he teased him. Meanwhile, Sui was playing with the water, and Mukoda got a great idea. He asked Sui for help, and his slime turned into a shower head. As a result, Fel could be cleaned more quickly, and Mukoda began to lather him. Fel learned that his face needed to be washed too, and he was terrified. A few moments later, Mukoda got a towel, and Fel wet him. Fel apologized, and Mukoda combined fire magic with field wind magic to dry himself off. Then Fel was clean, and Mukoda said that he looks like a legendary Fenrir. After Fel was clean, he wanted to eat immediately, and Mukoda prepared Fel's portion. Fel learned that gyudon is eaten with lots of rice and was excited. He then did a taste check, and his familiars loved the taste. Mukoda was also amazed by the wyvern meat because it tasted similar to Wagyu beef. Suddenly Fel asked for wyvern stew, and Mukoda said they will eat it tomorrow. Later, Mukoda told Fel that he had to take a bath every month from now on. Fel didn't want to be bathed every month, but Sui convinced him to accept it. A few days later, Guildmaster Willem was shocked by the Earth Dragon. Butcher Ron said that he can't handle such a precious and rare monster. Guildmaster Willem knew a butcher to take care of the Earth Dragon, so Mukoda decided to travel to Dolan, and Fel was excited to eat seafood. Then he visited Lambert, and he delivered him many beauty products. He said goodbye to his friends in this city and prepared everything for his next journey. A few weeks later he traveled to Dolan, and Fel was excited to eat seafood soon.